Hello, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to Growth Mind State. I'm Anthony Thompson with Robert Catrona.
Hello, everybody.
Hoping you had a wonderful Christmas and holiday season, Hanukkah, Ramadan, Kwanzaa, whatever you follow. Just hope you had a wonderful holiday season. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It was very pleasant. Got to spend some time with family. Can't complain. It was, it's always a stressful time during the holidays. I had my moments where, a little down because of, all the crazy stuff that's going on, but very grateful that everybody's still here, so I can't complain 100%, but, it is what it is. How was your holiday? It was decent?
It was calm. It was one of those things where it's COVID time, so you just decide to stay apart. And I had a little bit of a drop off with my parents, which was nice.
Mm.
They just dropped some stuff off. I'm sure that they went over to our relatives in Brooklyn as well, because we're half of my family is from Jersey or in Jersey, and the rest of them are in New York mostly.
Oh, so they're pretty local. That's good. That's good. Not
Yeah.
too far, right? That's great. So today, I'd suggested we talked about mainstream media and independent media, basically like spewing lies and misleading information about current events and everything that are going on, which is, in my view, is caused a lot of issues in regards to the trust of the media, as well as people making dangerous decisions and going out doing things that they shouldn't do. Like, for instance, like saying COVID is safe. It's not safe, but it's not as big of a deal as it is, and they're going out doing things when they shouldn't be doing, and just lying about the election and so on and so forth. So we came together with a couple of topics that maybe would make somebody see that not everything is 100% honest, and they should really like rethink and look at things. Get most what's the word I'm looking for? Get multiple views of different things before they come to a conclusion nowadays. With some of these new organizations, especially some of these crazy right wing organizations nowadays. But yeah, that's something I wanted to really talk about. It's been eating away at me.
What scares me is that what the beginning of our discussion seems to be hinging on is how people are moving from Fox News, which to most people, which it has been pulled out, to most people seems right enough, and I mean right as in right leaning,
Right.
but somehow these are groups that are further than that. I mean, specifically, we're going to talk about OANN and Newsmax, and it's very compelling to know that Newsmax, for instance, has been around since 1998, a lot of these companies seem to have just popped out of nowhere, but they're instead kind of rooted in thinking this way and actually causing change or causing conservatism to occur really in this country. So that's what I found most interesting about a lot of the things that we researched for this kind of topic.
Yeah, it's not really like a normal conservatism either. It's like a super far um, right, kind of like fascist kind of mentality, and a lot of crazy things that have been spewed out of their organization. That's kind of getting me scared at the fact that normalcy is not going to be normal for a while. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they're taking it up a notch. They say that progressives are taking things up a notch for the left. But I think at least our views as a progressive view is more better for the people. It's more here. They're like, for some people that claim that they hate government so much, it seems like they want the government to kind of do like some really extreme things here and there with people. Well, I guess we'll see in a minute. It seems like they
Well,
want to
I
overturn elections and stuff. Which is kind of crazy. But go
it's
ahead.
no, it's very important, like the kind of the structure, especially for there's differences between ONN and Newsmax, and
Hmm.
I won't break it down too far yet. We'll kind of just do individual ones for each one.
Hmm.
But for instance, Newsmax already has a demographic that they wanted their online viewers to be in the 54.7 years of age kind of bracket. So
Yeah.
their target really is to really get an audience that is older and over the top. So let's just read from it. Was in March 2014, Newsmax was profiled in Bloomberg Business Week by correspondent Carl Tao Greenfield. The story detailed Newsmax's successful business model of targeting higher income baby boomers. The average age of Newsmax online readers is 45.7 years age, and the profile detailed Newsmax's plans to launch a linear and over the top content cable channel, which they're succeeding with right now.
Hmm.
It's available in roughly 70 million cable TV homes. Newsmax is on a hiring splurge right now, Rudy said. And the network is adding 25 more employees since the election to bring its total workforce to 175. Sorry, 275. I know for a fact that I've seen these different jobs being available right now. Newsmax and even Fox are both hiring pretty consistently. So it tells you that there's a health in that market for them, not for the population, but for at least for them.
Yeah, they seem to be like just in general right wing, uh, like people following right wing stations seems to have definitely expanded recently or whatever. It's interesting. Like I think Trump has definitely like converted a lot of Republicans to being more far extreme right than anything else. It seems like all they talk about is how bad the left is, and just lie a lot. I don't know. The videos that we brought together like kind of show some of the crazy things that people have been saying, and like in order to confuse, what's the word? In order for
Confuse
people to,
people. I mean,
yeah, it's like it's just like some of the stuff that they're saying is just super extreme. I don't know, for some reason my headphones are like bothering me today. um so yeah, either way, let's do you want to cut to one of the videos, or do you want to talk more
yeah,
about
yeah. I mean, we should see where their minds are at. The one lasting thing I would say about Newsmax, for instance, is that it has jumped 68% since the U.S. presidential election as the channel refused to declare Joe Biden the winner. So that number is not known to be permanent. It says that the primetime viewership for the week that ended December 4th was down to 21% from 2 weeks earlier, averaging about 391,000 viewers. So that's a pretty good fall for them. So that tells you that they may not be able to maintain that type of audience.
yeah,
In the end, I think people will fundamentally fall back into screw the government. The government can't work for me, but I don't have enough patience to just talk to deal with it and be entrenched in politics.
yeah.
I think enough people, even on the left, have this kind of feeling right now, and it's causing centrism as well. But that's not the problem, really. The real problem is that there are a lot of people who are not voting for the causes that will affect them and affect
So
their families, infect others.
it seems like also like they don't seem nowadays when it comes to being honest, like the honesty aspect of journalism seems to be like getting lower and lower, the bars getting lower and lower, and they're doing things more towards their lobbyists or their base just to appease them instead of being straight honest about what exactly is going on with this election and everything else with COVID and everything else. It's like a twilight zone to me. It's kind of crazy. I'll cut to the first video.
Rally, like I think we had 41,000 people the other night in Florida, right, on one-day notice. Last night in Pennsylvania, we had 20,000 people, one-day notice. Biden goes out, he's got 20 people, literally 20 people. They have nobody. And then I say, always tied in the polls. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But I had the same thing 4 years ago. You're a witness to it, where I was down in all 9 states, swing states, and I won every one of them, right? Because the media is corrupt. If I've done nothing else, it's I've convinced people how corrupt the media is, and I'm not including you. And by the way, I'm including 90% of the media, okay? It's totally corrupt. And you know that better than anybody, in all fairness, but you probably can't get involved because you want to get a job someday. I don't bring it up. As an example, when we talked Charlottesville, I gave a perfect statement, but they cut off the end of the statement where I talked about that. But you know what? I'm really against Antifa. I'm against the radical left. The radical left are the ones burning down our cities. They're burning down our Democrat-run, stupidly run cities, Greg. The radical left, Antifa. And I'm very much opposed to them. And for some reason, they're guarded by the liberals. I don't know why, but it's not happening much anymore because we're finding a lot of things. But the radical left, Antifa, and those, you look at Portland, it's all Antifa and the radical left.
So the headlines, by the way.
So there's a lot to unpack there. Just to begin with, obviously,
the 90%, right? Like that whole 90% of the news is. I'm like, okay. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of embellishments out there, right? Like when it comes to like people's viewpoints or whatever it is. they bring on guests with their own opinions and so on and so forth. But there's one truth, right? Like at the end of the day, and it seems like, you know, he's blaming everything to the radical left, you know, so that in general is like propaganda, right? Like, you know, like you're gonna blame everybody for, you know, them for all the problems in the whole wide world, and you don't want to, you know, blame anything with the Proud Boys and some of their actions and some of the other things that he's had in the past. You know, now he's got a media thing. This is something I've spoke to people about in the past. In order for you to nowadays really get noticed in this society, you have to deal with networks, especially when it comes to promotion and stuff. Like, so if you want to, you know, Google, Facebook, and all these other places are like the gatekeepers. If you can't get past that stuff, then nobody sees what you're spewing. So now some of that, you know, the gatekeepers are news organizations, obviously, right? So he can't get his stuff now through Twitter because of that was a 230 bill, right? It's the 230 bill?
Well, it's specifically because he's holding it hostage for the Section 230 section to be pulled.
Actually signed the bill. He actually signed the bill a little while, or he's agreed to sign the bill. I don't know if he's actually going to do it, but I just saw on Facebook that he's going to sign the bill. That I guess the current one at the 900 billion or whatever it is. I'm not sure exactly like what the status is, but I just saw it pop up. But
when I see it, I'll believe it.
Yeah, me too. But like I said, like he's using his these things as his bully pulpit, right, or whatever it is. He's using these news organizations to rally up his crowd and so on and so forth. Even with Fox News or whatever, they were willing to pay him, I think, $100 million to stop doing things because I think, what was it, either Oann or Newsmax ratings were going up while Fox News's were going down. Like they don't want him to obviously join another network when he leaves office, or create his own network and become competition to theirs or whatever. So his voice is powerful, and the lies that he says or the exaggerations that he says, I don't want to necessarily say everything's a lie because maybe I don't know everything, but it seems like a lot of it's exaggerating, and there's no way in hell that he knows that it's all Antifa. You know, there's obviously other organizations, and even Antifa is not an organization. It's a belief, even though people want to label it as an organization. You know, he feels like he wants to blame those people, and he's got a you know, media source to do it. But go ahead. I'm sorry. What's your views?
No. I'm actually more interested in how Newsmax has somehow they stemmed a wave where Fox News could have easily overtaken them, and they've been at it for a little bit longer, since 1998. Mm-hmm. One of the major things is that Fox News lost over I believe it was $1 billion before they became profitable. So one of the things that these companies don't necessarily have is the pockets to keep themselves up if they don't keep up viewership, and not just viewership. I mean, the whole model has been broken recently. So now you're going to have to get subscribers really in addition to that, to even come close to where, though they claim to be the fourth largest, actually Oann claims to be the fourth largest network. So I don't know if it's a kind of a switch a little bit, but not really, because it's the same topic. But OANN is really important to talk about because I think they're the babies that have taken advantage of the system. So it's a cable channel founded by Robert Herring Sr. And owned by the Herring Networks, launched in July 2013. So they're only 7 years old, or 8 years old if you really want to be specific. Founded in 2013 in San Diego. They have a branch in Washington, D.C. and New York City. And they're obviously supporters of Trump. They've been very specific and told others to be outwardly conservative on their network. It's pretty obvious. It's not shielded by anything, so I don't think that surprises anyone. The first time really people heard about them is Tomi Lahren. So it's Tomi Lahren, sorry to mispronounce her name. Early audiences came from viral rants from this breakout star, and there was a year from August 2014 before leaving for Glenn Beck's The Blaze, and then to Fox Nation. So she had an upward trajectory, and then she took it because they didn't stay with the network that was. It's still very popular amongst people. They just, this is all about creating profit in their minds. I think it's not about having an environment where news matters. It's actually about creating your own profit margin for yourself. So OANN is actually more toxic to me because Newsmax is trying to be a company that has some fundamentals, but in truth, they gave credence to George Soros, to these crazy ideas that George Soros both funded a so-called caravan and then collaborated with Nazis as a teenager, that there was no chemical weapons attack in Domia, Syria. In 2018, that the Parkland mass shooting survivor David Hogg had been coached for his media appearance by his father, a former FBI agent. Since 2018, they have employed Jack Posobiec as a political correspondent and on-air presenter. Posobiec first achieved a degree of prominence as a key player in spreading the Pizzagate scandal. Okay. And this year in the Southern Province, that's exactly why I had to get there, is that this is every crazy idea that you've heard, every Reddit chain that you've might have been attached to. All of these ideas have somehow made it through Newsmax, and I'm not sure who's the creator. I don't know if the people have created these crazy ideas or if the networks themselves are actually seeing a profit from this instead. So if they're seeing a profit from it, they just decided that this is how we're going to grift. I know that Newsmax sells vitamins, so I mean they'll sell you anything.
Wow, it's crazy, man. This, it's funny, like, people. It's more like they want to call people fake news, like all these different things fake news, right? But you think about their it's not gunshots, right? I don't know. It sounds, I hear like banging sounds outside. It's weird. Being in Newark, it can be a little crazy out here sometimes. What was I gonna say? They label people fake news, but their views and how they're telling the news seems to be more unethical than anybody else, right? Like their goal is to make money and talk about things that help them get the ratings, right? It's not about the actual facts about things and stuff. That's pretty bad, I don't know, man. Like at the end of the day, I just want more honest reporting, and it seems like even on the left, there's like some, which we'll talk about, I guess, later, moments in which there's misleading information or things so that they can get certain things accomplished for their base, which is like either center left or center right or whatever it is, because that's more like the corporate Democrat like viewpoint and things. But when it comes to progressives or whatever, they'll lie to progressives too. Like I don't want to say it's all on the right. That they're making up stories and exaggerating and embellishing things. You know what I mean? But this is tough.
I think we're watching different tiers of how that system works. Some people are profiting on every single level of politics. Some of them, but the issue really isn't about the profit. It's about what your reason to make the profit is. Is it that you have an ideology? That's why it's difficult for me to have more hatred of like a Fox News and Newsmax and Oann. I don't follow any of it. I refuse to take the time to do so. But it's because I don't feel like they're being honest players. I feel like there are very few honest actors on any of those stations. So without that kind of backbone, you lost me. So it's almost weird to think that we have to go save a section of the population from these people. Like somehow we have to. I don't even want to be like you got to cross a barrier between all these people. It's not our job to. It shouldn't be our job to do that. But until people want to do it, I'm not sure what else we're presented with, because we have to break some people's brains a little bit. You
Yeah,
need
part
you
part
need
of
to
me,
like real.
yeah, I'm sorry. Part of me feels like, it's a lost cause, and just try to like those people willing to listen are the ones that we should talk to. I think that there's a percentage of people that feel a certain way, and then another percentage that feel another way, and then there's some people that can be molded. I think my focus is going to be on the ones that I don't want to say just agree with me, but are kind of open-minded to listen to other people as well. Like, I'm open-minded. If a right-wing person talks to me and gives me a justifiable reason to feel a certain way, I might agree with certain things, right? I'm going to be open-minded. But if I've gotten to the point where where a person is like, they put up their wall and that wall staying up, I'm not going to waste my time on that. I'd rather waste my time on somebody that could be molded into something that, and I don't even mean like to the point where they're just following my beliefs. I want them to be open minded and to do the research and everything else. But at least, that's a better way of living life, to like be open minded. And I feel like, a lot of these right wing people, even even Democrats, man, like
You can just
they're
say
like that.
left wing. I mean, we can. Let's be
But
honest
my,
with each
my thing
other.
is
I
left.
think that
I don't think they're left though anymore, man. I really think a lot of them are really centered. Like, it's like they're willing to settle for a lot of things that, like Obamacare is Romney care, right? So it's like they don't realize until like it takes like a something like COVID to happen, that they really would want something like Medicare for all, right? Like it's they've been kind of molded into being a little more center right is okay. You know what I mean? It's cool to settle with some of these people. It's cool to accept Pelosi's decisions and Schumer's decisions and all that other stuff, when it's really not. Like, look at where we're at. They settled for $600 a month. That's ridiculous. We know that we need more than that. Like, they, I don't know, man.
so.
It's,
I no. I think it's actually important to talk about how they are feckless in their ability to get things done per
yeah,
se.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the truth is that the goalposts do keep moving.
yeah,
The
yeah.
goalposts for the Democratic Party, and I believe that this is Mitch McConnell, this is Lindsey Graham, this is long-term effects of having these people in. Sorry about that.
That's good.
Having these people in the Senate, and in Congress in general. Um, they literally have gerrymandered the system so that it is difficult for someone to come in there and change the system out of a, let's do the war bill every year and then tie a lot of stuff to it. Like, they're very much knowing of how to mess with us. They don't care about us. They care about the money, and it's very clear that that's happening. But for some reason, they stay popular in their own states, or eke out a win at a good 60% clip.
Yeah, their team is ride or die for them. Like, our team has like just recently, I think the Republican Party is now having like fighting within the party. You know what I mean? It's been a while since like something like that. They had the Tea Party and all these other different little factions of like Republicans, but now it's like really
Well,
like
they have the
either
Blue Dog Democrats.
yeah, yeah,
Let's be remember that too.
yeah, yeah, and then now you have, on our side, we have the progressives versus like the more center leaning Democrats, right? Like, people willing to make exceptions. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, we'll do that if we can get this and whatever. No, we need to start putting our foot down. Now's the time for a lot of that stuff, especially with all that stuff with supposedly Jimmy Dore and AOC. And I don't want to get into too many other topics, because, like, I know we said we're going to try to stay focused, but we need to kind of go on a further left fight. To get more than, if we ask for a little, we're not going to get any. We got to ask for a lot, and then settle for somewhere in between a lot and a little, instead of just asking for a little and then losing something like we've been doing. Like, it seems like we just want this little itty bitty, and the Republicans say no, and then we concede, right? We got to ask for Medicare for all, and then try to, like, work our way to a point where it's acceptable for everybody, and they're not even willing to do that. The Democrats call us stupid, right? Our own party calls us stupid for thinking about it.
So yeah, no, I think this is actually a important time for our party, because we need to have the ability to have these kind of arguments and actually just have these arguments. We do not agree, like, not us, but as a party, we don't agree on multiple issues, and we have to accept that we've got to fight on a global front for progressive change. So I think that's going to take more Well, obviously more than Biden, but it's going to take multiple efforts. It's going to take probably a whole generation, another generation. Like when I looked at the statistics for a later thing, when they look at Gen Z, they specifically have them as 18 to 22. So they're talking about people who are kids who are 14 to 24, really. You know what I'm saying? So they're talking about that range. And those are the people who are going to need to come out and vote in the future. And that's going to be, I mean, I hate, people don't get it. Yes, as you grow older, more people vote. And it's yes, it's a problem to get younger people to vote. But every single time that you do it, you do, obviously, as we're seeing in Georgia, it has an effect. And we have a much happier story at the end of the show about that.
Do you want to see video 2? Content?
Of course.
Yeah, let's put this one on, see, get an opinion on this.
The world over the last century, some of those years make 2020 look like a picnic. What has made this year perhaps more difficult was that many of us believed the media. We lived in a social network reality, and we trusted the government to make decisions for us. The virus was used to fundamentally change the way that we view ourselves and our nation, and perhaps for the first time in our history, we became truly subservient to our government. What did China hope to accomplish with this virus? Sure, they wanted to create economic chaos in the West, and they did. But they also understood that there is a powerful strain in our media and our politics that is a shadowy reflection of the ideologies that underpin Chinese government. The Chinese understood that politicians afraid of losing their jobs and those who would jump at the chance to exert more control over the American population would really do their work for them.
That's so hard to even talk about, because there's China. I don't even know where there's just this obvious lie that they're just like, okay, no, we're going to triple down on it, and we're going to tell you to come out on broadcast air and say it over and over again until people believe that the virus is China's fault, as if a nation as if a microbe gives a shit about a country. It doesn't care about a country. It just propagates from place to place. And I think that it's like the people who want to be applauded for, okay, it's the same people who want to be applauded right now for Trump saying that you want $2,000 in stimulus. But at the same time, they want to be applauded for him closing down the border to China back in a month too late, when he hadn't expressed knowledge of it.
They said when it was Bernie Sanders who asked for 2,000, it was socialism, right? But now that Trump's doing it, that's a great idea, right? I'm like, it's the same thing. It's giving $2,000 to people, right? So it's like, it's just funny. And on top of that, to blame China on everything, because there's, I guess he wrote in a tweet earlier, this is the China virus. Like, before all this stuff happened, like earlier today, he was like, this is the China virus. Remember, everybody should get $2,000 because this is a China virus. He keeps saying that stuff. And I'm like, this guy's crazy, man. Like you said, a virus doesn't care. It's like the flu or a cold or whatever. If you happen to be near it, you can get sick from it. It is what it is. But, yeah, man, like it's just, I don't understand, like, why it's like, when it comes to like right-wing stuff, it's like hate everybody else. America's number one. Like, we're perfect. Like, the stuff that we're spewing is I'm starting to feel like I'm in China. Like, the stuff that they say about China controlling the population and so on and so forth. Some of the stuff that they're saying makes me feel like they're doing the same kind of manipulative things that they say other countries do. And I don't know, man. I just want some normalcy. I'm hoping when when Biden comes in, that we get something that resembles normalcy again. At least kind of it. It's not going to be perfect, but that's
what I need to say though is that China, though, okay, so there are legitimate issues with the way that we deal with China and have dealt with China for the last probably 30-40 years, but we are allowing them to not take advantage of the system in multiple ways. And then now, especially after 4 years of Trump, there's not a relationship that we have that is really going to help us. It actually has become such a strong relationship between Russia, China, and some of the Chinese countries that are there. And that is great for them. It's fantastic. If it's for us, it's almost that we have a democratic mindset. And I think it's good to be pro-democracy. I am pro-democracy. But it's also, these people are unfortunately living under a dictatorship as well, and they're using corporations and this kind of large expansion in China, which is a real issue. That's an actual thing that I wish people could talk about, but it's so complicated, and internationally, it's not a topic that is sexy or even popular to talk about. China is just a rising power in our view, economic power to be more specific.
What kills me about the whole China thing, though, is it was okay when we were outsourcing to other countries and ripping off and destroying the stuff here. Now that China has gotten in the mix, and because their population is so large and they're able to be more cost effective because they're doing what they're doing. I'm not going to say cost effective in a good way, but they're doing what they're doing so that they can make products cheaper and more easily accessible for people. Like, they're just, everything in the United States made out of China, almost everything, you know what I mean? So it's like, so what is it? What are they mad at? That China kind of like upped us one? Is that at the end of the day what it is? That they want to like make China look so horrible? We need to start building back in the United States again. Why? Because we were abusing other countries, like to take advantage. Look at what, like back in the days in the 80s and 90s, Gap and all these other companies were getting their clothes for dirt cheap and everything else out, outsourcing to other countries. But now all of a sudden, China's got something in our market, and now they want to cut it out because that's cutting into our thing, and we don't own as much now because of how China has built itself. That's our stupidity. We should have been building at home and doing the things that we had to do here. Majority of the things, at least, we could always outsource to other countries once in a while, but at the end of the day, keep it in house, as much as possible. And they, that's our fault. And now that we don't have, look, go ahead.
We gave them sweetheart. We didn't even, the government gave them some deals, and I don't mean directly gave them deals, but basically they having an approach to trade that was a certain way over decades allowed them to, and it's not, honestly, I don't think it's negative if they were not in a dictatorship, and it's a kind of pseudo dictatorship where they, it's their president who's going to be president for life, and that's something that's very difficult to change. You have to let China change itself. I think that's something that we've learned, is that most of these countries do a better job changing themselves than us coming in and changing them. So we've just been ineffective for 4 years. That's just the best way to state it, is that we've blown 4 years of how we could have changed the direction of our country, and we just did not. Not even a huge Clinton supporter, but like seeing that how much of Oann and Newsmax controlled the narrative over those probably 8 years or so, because they've been popular from one place to another by 2013. And by popular, that's up and down, different numbers for different groups. And I just didn't even see it. I personally don't think that I will go watch Newsmax at any point to hate watch it, but just to know how much they changed the way that this nation talked about stuff. Pizzagate was this thing that they propagated.
It's crazy how they have all this stuff happening, and like, I think you and I are like pretty level-minded when it comes to like looking at certain news things, calling it for what it is, and moving on to something that's better. Like, we look at, I think, decent media sources that allow us to kind of get like a more well-rounded perspective. Like, I don't like MSNBC either. I don't like CNN at times either. They are, to me, a little more truthful than Fox News and everything else. But even then, I've seen like blatant like disregard to truths and exaggerations and all like whatever else happened from them too. So I try to be open-minded, listen to different things. I even listen occasionally to Fox. I've never, until recently, went on to Newsmax until I started hearing things about them, as well as I've heard of OAN and OANN or OAN, but I never took the time because of all the stories that I heard about. I'm like, okay, this is just crazy right wing, like propaganda. I don't need to see this. I know it's nothing I'm going to agree with. I didn't think what's crazy about Newsmax is when I was going through their site, some of their stuff seems straightforward and whatever, but then I see how some of their discussions that they have with people tend to lean, more right. And I was like, well, you couldn't tell by reading the articles, like, because I was reading the articles. But then when you start seeing the actual shows, you're like, wow, like, I could see why people kind of like can believe them, because their articles look kind of like, straight to the point, and some of them actually seem to make sense, and so on and so forth. But when you start listening to like how they talk about Trump, won the election, we refuse to acknowledge Biden as the president at the moment, and blah 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 blah, and election fraud, and and you're like, wow, so okay, I see where their biases are, you know what I mean? And you wouldn't see that with the actual written text that that they have on their websites. Like, you wouldn't feel it because of the way they write their articles.
It's because it's like a lot of these newspapers that we have that we even follow it for whatever reason, like Washington Post, New York Times, and or the Atlantic, I would even say, that have some conservative leaning people. Newsmax was a publication first. It is first off a publication and then a radio kind of thing, and then it went to TV. So that's why I almost call OAN its toxic brother, because it didn't come from publication. It came directly from just doing a network and just putting people on air and having inflammatory videos with Tommy Lahren. So it's kind of it's just it's informative. It's informative. I don't know how that changes how we deal with them, because I don't think that we have to change individual people's minds to not watch this stuff. But I mean, I think we're in an area that does not have that influence. I'm sure there is, right? But by the numbers, I'm sure we live in even though they have a bureau in New York and Washington, D.C., the most liberal areas, I'm sure they're not making their money off that. They're not making their viewership off that.
Do you think that because like there's areas where I drive in Jersey, and I'm sure it's all over the country, where there's like a low amount of internet, you know what I mean? Like, they don't have like a lot of access to certain kinds of media and internet access. Do you think this affects things? Obviously, if somebody tells somebody, it's a lot of word of mouth going on, and so on and so forth. Do you think that the left-leaning side is not doing as an efficient job as the right-leaning side in regards to reaching these people? Do you think that has a huge effect in it? You know what I mean? Like, because I tend to see in like more, farmland area and, or what is it, rural, I guess would be the term, right? A lot of, Trump supporters and right-leaning people, and they seem to be like, a lot of them seem to be relatively poor, right? From the way it looks. But it seems like they're all supporting Trump, thinking like whatever they're doing is going to be the right decision that's going to help them in the long term, which obviously it hasn't. I don't see how Trump has benefited this country at all, but everybody feels that way. Do you think that has a lot to do with it, the lack of resources in that sense? Or no?
I actually unfortunately believe that it's an entrenchment into kind of the culture of being a Republican. I have waffled between that before. I'm settling recently on the fact that there's a certain cultural phenomenon, which is to hate what is the Democratic Party, which was to basically take away rights. Basically, they hate the fact that the Democratic Party switched over into a party that was for the civil rights movement and for like all of these past incidents that took away resources from white people and gave that to people of color and gave that to poor people. And I think there's always been this kind of nostalgia for a time where people who were well off or middle class to upper middle class basically had it nice enough that they could ignore the pain of others. So right now they're in a situation where they're seeing a lot of people hurting and they want to ignore it. They want to ignore it, and they're doing whatever they can to psychologically put that in the corner. And they can do it loudly now, you know? That's the difference. They can do it much in a group. There's these groups that are just, I guess they're grassroots groups. I mean, they're militias, you know, they're people like that, but it is a grassroots movement that's what scares me the most, is that it's as natural as like the way that the Black Lives Matter movement came along. It's this natural feature of the progress, which is dangerous, but it might be actively necessary. You need to almost have such a ridiculous outcome to deal with, to then change people's minds, you know? Maybe. That's what I'm hoping as a person.
I'm gonna cut to video 3 so like we could see some of the wildness of like the way people feel about the media and stuff.
Okay.
Where'd you get your news from?
Oann, baby.
Oann?
They're a lot more honest than you. Even Fox News is crooked.
Welcome to our new viewers.
If you're watching Newsmax TV or One America News, you are hearing lies that President Trump is going to win a second term.
Trump won the election. He'll win the recount. He'll win in court.
Right now, Joe Biden is pretending to be the president-elect.
Now that Fox has joined the mainstream media in censoring factual reporting,
Fox News is going to tell you to sit on your couch and accept that this election was stolen from you like a good little, person.
Newsmax has not called the election for Joe Biden. Not because we support Donald Trump, because we support democracy. Every vote should count, Brian.
Wild.
Rudy. Yep, that is the owner of Newsmax, or the director of Newsmax. I apologize.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I mean. I don't know if I can change that person's mind. That person is not going to be receptive to me or a lot of the people that we know. And it doesn't matter how intelligent you are at some point. I think that there's a gap where you have to fight for the people who are youngest and are just coming up and now are developing their thoughts. And you can change the minds of people who are older. I just think that it has to happen much more naturally. It needs to almost like hit them like a brick, you know?
Yeah. That or by people that they trust. A lot of it is like a trust issue. Like, oh, this left guy's trying to brainwash me, or like whatever. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, they need like family or friends that they trust to actually convince them. That's why a part of me says like I'm not even going to try to convince those people. I want people that are, a little more able to be molded, man. At the end of the day, that's, the fact that they're saying all that stuff, knowing that, how did the whole country lie? Like, why is it, if we made a lie, if we cheated the election for Biden, why wouldn't we have done it for all the other, the Senate and the Congress?
Down ballot. I mean, it's a crazy argument. All the down ballot candidates, then we would have just ransacked that too. And then in the end, we got to a much more complicated. That's actually what pisses me off sometimes, is that we could get into a much more complicated conversation about the tapestry of America and about how different like the groups of people who voted for Trump really were. There's a small swing of urban people who voted for Trump. That is weird. And there's a showing that, women voted predominantly for Biden. I would love to have that kind of discussion and talk about that, but we can't even have like a scientific discussion. Not you and me, but the population can't have a scientific discussion about it.
He lost the popular and the electoral college, but people still deny it. You know what I mean? And like, what is it? The 6th, they certified on the 6th or whatever of January, and supposedly
which couldn't go any faster.
Yeah, it's scary though, because I'm hearing things about people like disrupting it. You know what I mean? So, or calling that day the day that they're going to do rebellions and like whatever. I don't know. It's a scary thought. You know, we're not over until it's over, bro. Like I feel like, you know, a lot of people figure, okay, the Electoral College did their thing, so it's a done deal. The courts did their thing, it's a done deal. 6 hasn't come yet. They haven't certified it yet, so that's not, to me, it's not a done deal until Biden's in office and Trump is gone. You know what I mean? And even then, with all the wild stuff that's happening nowadays, you know, these crazy people are still out there, so nothing's really ever done. You know what I mean? I'm just hoping, you know, like they'll set, you know, like with the Barack, they ended up, you know, they hated it, but they kind of was like, okay, whatever, and they let it go. You know what I mean? They had their opinions. They always were trying to say all these nasty things and do these nasty things, but nothing really came of it. These Trump sycophants, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, man. It's scary, bro. I don't know what to say about that. I hope it ends. I really hope by inauguration, like, we're in a good place, you know, but who the hell knows, right? We'll see in time. But so yeah, and then the whole thing with the election, like we were discussing about the election, it's endangering people, right? You know, so
yeah, I mean, this is actually a good time to move to Newsmax and Oann and the Trump campaign being sued for voting for basically slandering a campaign, a systems worker. In a lawsuit filed Tuesday in Colorado District Court, Eric Coomer, Director of Product Strategy and Security for Dominion, stated the allegations of voter fraud are false and baseless. So Dominion has been talked about multiple times. It's a Colorado-based voting systems company where about half of the voting machines came from. And there's a ridiculous, Sidney Powell ridiculously called him out. So the lawsuit names as defendants the Trump campaign, Rudy Giuliani, Trump advisor Sidney Powell, conservative media outlets One American News Network, and Newsmax Media, the right-wing website Gateway Pundit, and Colorado business and activist Joseph Altman, among others. Basically, Trump called the Dominion voting system a disaster, and now everybody is going out of their heads and using Dominion as a means to I don't know how you say you discredit the election when William Barr the AG that you currently have has said that there's no way that there was election fraud. So I also need to say that Altman, who is a Colorado conservative activist, claimed that Coomer made anti-Trump comments on Facebook. The lawsuit acknowledged that Coomer made comments critical of the president on his own private Facebook page. Now he says the page is inactive. So that is just pure chilling effect. Yeah. Like, and I don't know how Trump still has this power right now. He's supposed to be in a lame duck session, and these people have lionized this kind of attitude of going after these people. Yeah. So they're just like, he's hiding. This man is hiding. I apologize. What was his name?
Coomer?
Eric Coomer. Yes. Yeah. Coomer. Eric Coomer is in hiding right now. That's just not how it should be, right?
Basically doxing. He had said, well, we have video or whatever of it, basically, where he explains, you know, the stress he's under. But, you know, he basically said he's been doxed. His family's getting, you know, threats, a bunch of people, things, you know, his coworkers. You know, it's a shame, man. You know, these people are just doing their job, and they act like they can go in there like these are computer technicians, and you know what I mean. Like they put them in all in one barrel or bucket or whatever it is, and blame everybody for whatever they don't feel is right. And now these people's lives are being threatened by crazy people. You know, but I'll put on the video so you could they could see what's going on.
The Coomer character, who is close to Antifa, he specifically says that they're going to fix this election.
Let me ask you about this guy, Eric Coomer. I think he works for Dominion. He said, supposedly, don't worry about Trump. I've already made sure he's going to lose the election. Is that true for starters? And
yes,
it's true. You have that? You have that?
It's true.
In Coomer's case, he was in a position of power to actually act upon his rage against Trump and Trump voters. What does he mean when he says, Trump won't win? I made effing sure of that. Nothing?
Eric, thank you for coming on. First, I do need to say that there is no evidence that you or your company did anything to manipulate or steal any election.
What I've experienced over the last 6 weeks has been a complete upheaval of my life. As you mentioned, I have been in hiding in a secure location. I have not been able to return to my normal life since all of these baseless accusations came out. I'm currently, for security reasons for both myself and my colleagues, I am currently on leave from my position, so I'm not working. I'm still employed with the company, but I am on leave due to the security concerns.
Election day, various guests, attorneys, and elected officials have appeared on Newsmax and offered opinions and claims about Smartmatic and Dominion Systems, both companies that offer voting software in the U.S., and Newsmax would like to clarify its news coverage and note that it has not reported as true certain claims made about these companies. There are several facts our viewers and readers should be aware of. Newsmax has found no evidence that either Dominion or Smartmatic owns the other or has any business association with each other. We have no evidence that Dominion uses Smartmatic software or vice versa. No evidence has been offered that Dominion or Smartmatic use software or reprogrammed software that manipulated votes in the 2020 election.
So that's pretty funny how like they're talking about in the beginning all this stuff about Dominion, the guy's getting threats and all this other stuff, and then Newsmax had to recant all that stuff at the end. That's I should have paused it, before that little segment to explain that this is where they're, saying, we kind of screwed up. They might as well have said it like that, right? We screwed up and we didn't mean it, but it's kind of too late.
It's about liability.
Yeah, but
no, it's completely
crazy.
about liability.
It's too late, a little too late, right? Now he's still getting threats. Who's actually going to see it? How many times did they air that is the question. You know what I mean? How many times has the public seen that? There's people out there that live in a bubble. They see something once and all of a sudden they're pissed off for life. You know what I mean? So, it's crazy, bro. These people, have their lives being threatened. A lot of politicians get their lives threatened just for wanting to do their job, you know what I mean? And that's not fair, bro. That really enrages me, the fact that this guy has to, he's doing an election, he's putting himself at risk, with all these people trying to get democracy done, and instead, these people are threatening him and pointing a finger at somebody to point the finger at. That's always the case with politics, that it's always somebody's fault that somebody didn't get their way, instead of accepting the fact that things happen, and it doesn't always go your way, and this guy's poor family and his life is affected by it. It's a damn shame, man. I'd be pissed if that was I'm pissed as not being a family member, you know what I mean? But if that was one of my family members, I'd be livid to believe that this person has to live somewhere else. He can't go about his normal day. He's got to worry about people. I'm sorry. I'm going on. It's annoying.
No, it's all right. It's terrible. It's a terrible situation for this. I mean, he's just an analyst, and not even an analyst. He's directing a consulting company, so it doesn't seem like he deserves this kind of pressure to happen to him.
He didn't create the program, right?
He didn't even create the program. He's just the director for the program.
Yeah, but but to some people, he's worth being killed for, right? Which is crazy. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's very interesting because we won't talk about it because we don't have really enough information right now. But the incident that happened in Nashville, with it seems to have focused on knocking out telecommunications and a specific AT&T hub. That is just. It just sounds, I hate to say it, it sounds like it's some crazy right-wing idea to help everybody, and then he just, I don't know. This is one of those things where I can't help but think that it was a right-wing person.
They found the body. They said the guy, there was one body that was on the scene, and it was him. Supposedly he was trained and explosives, as well as trained, and I don't know that much about the person, so I don't want to like talk too much about it. But that and something about alarms. Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what the whole details are. I guess we'll hear more about it later. But it does sound like some crazy right wing whatever. It could but it's funny how when it first started, I heard something like Trump saying, or somebody saying that it was probably something with Antifa or like whatever. I heard, I mean, I can't, I don't want to vouch for what I think I heard because I'm not 100% sure who it was from. But I heard something about like it's probably a leftist thing, that it came from somebody from the left. I don't believe that at all. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't believe that. It doesn't seem like the type of thing that they would do. Like, what's the point, But
Excuse me.
You. No problem.
Thank you.
But yeah, man, this is a crazy times. There was also, I don't know if it's true because it was on Daily Mail, and Daily Mail is not, I don't necessarily think it's a.
No, it was just posted on CNN. I'm actually just reading through the article now.
I'm talking about there was a threat supposedly on the Empire State Building on Daily Mail I saw. So I don't know if that's credible or not, but I saw something online that said that too. So people are, I don't know, man. It's a scary thing, man. Like with these crazy people, like I don't know what to trust and what not to trust. I'm gonna stick to myself until things settle down, keep my family and the people I care about, like, not saying totally isolated, but as much out of the public areas as possible to keep my son at home until the school year's over. Go shopping or do, like, we basically pay for pickup. Like we go to ShopRite or whatever supermarket, BJ's or whatever it is. We order it and then we go to pick it up, so we don't have to be in the stores and stuff. We're trying to avoid all that stuff because it's just people acting like foolish nowadays, man. But anyways,
I feel like actually that's more of a product of 2016's the whole fervor after that it has to do with COVID. I think that it's an accelerant to the issue, but I think that it empowered certain people and it also drove some people off the cliff a little bit about things. They don't have the I don't want to say attention span. The coping skills is probably a good way to say it.
Yeah.
Actually,
I feel like a lot of people, they're like losing their minds. Like, I don't want my life to change so drastically and all this other stuff. Like, dude, man, we're all suffering the same way, man. Like, let's try to make it the best and easiest for everybody else. But some people can't do that. Some people literally, I don't want to insult people with mental issues or whatever it is, but there are people with mental issues going through this. There's people without, drug addictions. There's people, different types of people out there. Somebody, well, we talked about this before, like how some people are so used to not necessarily having their way, but things being in a certain kind of like state for them that just threw them off the rails. You know what I mean? Like they're losing it. You know what I mean? Like I'm used to a little bit of chaos in my life. I've struggled with financial issues. I've struggled with relationship issues. A lot of different things, ups and downs or whatever. Some people have had it their way like their whole life, and now all of a sudden this is like kind of derailed everything, and they don't know what to do with themselves, and so they're going to what they know most. And now their news organizations are giving them reasons to believe other things that, are way too far extreme. They think that giving people health care is, like on the, like for the Democratic Party, they're like, oh, we can't go that far for this. That's too much. Same thing with the Republicans. Oh, that's socialism or this and that and whatever. But no, we need these things right now. Maybe we can go back to normalcy like later on, but right now we got to do something extreme in order for us to kind of like, calm the waves that are going on right now. We're going through a lot of stuff, and it's not going to happen if we sit on our asses and just pray that it goes back to normal. We actually have to make an effort and actually change things in the meantime for things to get better. But some people, they just can't grasp that. They can't adapt.
So I'm going to be the contrary one that said that is going to say that the 2008 election of Obama actually didn't help us as a movement in some ways, because though it's so, there's so many layers to that. I think that like it just gave this country a passive idea that it was better than it was, that it was doing things correctly, and somehow like we're so crossed up right now. Like there are certain policies that Trump wants that make sense for us. We should be out of Afghanistan. But honestly, what he did was he pulled us out of an area without, really thinking about what the timeline is for that. So when it comes down to it, we've been there so long that it matters what happens when we just leave. We've created such a problem for ourselves since, I mean, you can say forever if you really want to talk about it, right? But that's why the "Make America Great Again" slogan is one of the most annoying ones, because it has no presence in reality. There was no point where America was great for all of these groups of people. There's only one or two groups of people that profited or did well because of that kind of mentality, and that's what we're trying to better America, where America was supposed to be this continuing goal of getting better. And I know there's some obvious fights in the beginning of our country over slavery, etc., but it was kind of attached to the document that like things keep changing, things will always change, and we are not doing our job reforming those major ideas that are in the Constitution that are outdated now. And I mean, there's just a lot of outdated thoughts that we have to combat and go at real hard. Like I've been thinking about the Medicare for All thing, and I still agree with my it is not good to try to force AOC to push a vote, especially because it's not like she's the one with all the credibility in the world to bring up a bill and force have Maxine Waters come up with the Medicare for All, and then at the end of the day, if she loses on it, it's not going to put her career in peril. Yeah. I mean, let's just be truthful. And why is it wrong to talk about the politics of progressives? Like, I mean, them as politicians as well. I mean, that means that there's some negatives and there's some positives, that they have some power. But the truth is that they would like to lock her out of having as much power as she could. Yeah. They know how popular she is.
The two things that I want to say about first one is about the "Make America Great Again." In my mind, I think is put the blinders back on. You know what I mean? Like to go back to normal and just be blind to all the stuff that's like kind of horrible that America does. You know, that's how I look at "Make America Great Again," because that's what people were doing. They had their blinders on. They were doing whatever they're doing. They were purchasing things from countries where they had slave labor and all sorts of crazy things going on. That we were mistreated, you know, here with the Medicare, not the Medicare, but the healthcare system or whatever. Everything that this country, I don't want to say everything that this country has done is bad, but you know, it's like everybody's settled to an extent, you know, instead of actually getting something that our tax dollars and our hard work should have helped us. You know, we deserve, you know, healthcare. We deserve certain things that, in my mind, this COVID thing has definitely made me feel that that it, you know, it's proven that we deserve more as a country, you know, the citizens of this country. Now, in regards to the whole force to vote thing, like I understand your point too, and part of me like definitely agrees, because you don't want to take one step forward, 3 steps back, right? You want things to keep moving in a direction where eventually change will happen. But then at the same time, it's like Trump has given me the feeling that things are going to be more extreme down the line. Like when the next election comes, we're going to have a smarter, maybe more sophisticated election where the person is going to be just as bad, if not worse, than Trump, and smarter. You know what I mean? So like, when are we going to get these things to happen? Like, but then you'd also, like you said, don't want to force things down at some point down people's throats. Because if you force people to make decisions like Medicare for All, you know, like the public,
they'll hold on to it.
They'll our government's crooked, or this, that, socialism. You know, like, you're gonna make it worse for the next election. And so when it comes to election, more of these anti, you know, social issues, you know, social views type of people are going to come out and vote against it. You know, there's a lot of it's a really complicated game of chess. You know, and at the end of the day, and I don't know what the answer is, but part of me says we kind of have to fight hard now. But then at the same time, it's like if you fight too hard, you might overshoot what you want and end up screwing it up even worse. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a hard topic, you know, and like I could, instead of infighting within the progressive thing, because that's what, you know, a lot of people are doing now. They're fighting amongst themselves, which I think benefits the centrists and as well as the more far right people. It benefits them, you know what I mean? They want us to fight. They want us to have problems in the Democratic Party, you know what I mean? So it's like it's a lose-lose at the end of the day. We got to really be careful of how we approach this. I just think that the more we put the information out there, the more people decide, okay, maybe this will be the thing. Like that's the purpose of the show, right? Like we're out here hopefully going to show some views that maybe somebody will agree with, maybe they'll disagree, maybe you'll give them a reason to think twice about it. Maybe they'll still feel the same way about it at the end of the day, but now they have a different perspective that down the line, if they hear it from somebody else, might impact them in a way where they might change their mind later on down the road. You got to kind of like get the message out there at some point. You know, you don't want to make them so discouraged with that message that it's a complete shutdown. You know, they don't want to, no, Medicare for all, socialism, you know, giving people money, socialism, no, you know, communism, you know, that's evil, you know, but in reality, it's not. You know, we're all, at the end of the day, the intentions, it's all about intentions, right? You want to help people. I don't think saying that people got to get off their britches or whatever it is and get a job and do this and do that, like, you know, is necessarily helpful. That's a lot of talk. That's not helping people that can't get these jobs that you're claiming. Like, I get into arguments all day about on Facebook and Instagram about people that say, oh, there's so many opportunities. You might not like the job opportunities out there, but there's jobs out there. Like, yeah, but what if those jobs are paying crap money? You know what I mean? You can't pay those bills that you, like, you know, they say, oh, the housing market or whatever is crumbling and people are going to be homeless. Well, why don't you get a job? There's jobs out there. I'm like, what if the job pays like $8 an hour and the person's rent, you know what I mean? They're not qualified for these other jobs out there, or the opportunities are scarce. Then they got to settle for a job that doesn't pay much. So they still got to worry about food. They got to worry about their apartment or their house, their children. That doesn't help anything. You know, what they really need to do is like I said, you know, plenty of times is give people stimulus. But of course, we got this stupid discussion. It's been 9 months since I think it's been 9 months since the last stimulus, right? And they're still debating on whether or not to give people anything more than $600. You know, that's, this is why I say I don't count on anything at this point. I don't count on the government. I don't count on, you know, like friends and family are the people that I count on and the people that I'm willing to help. Everything else that you can't do any more than that. I can try to help the community to an extent, but nobody has the resources, and what they're doing is they're crippling more and more people, which is reducing the resources to help the community. So eventually, when the crap hits the fan, we can't do anything. They want to keep production going up, right? So they can keep manufacturing things. But what happens when people have no money? They can't buy these things. So these businesses are going to suffer too. So what? You're going to keep inflating these businesses with trillions of dollars of our tax money that we can't even buy anything for? Like, it's just going to sit there. What is it? Richard Wolff was talking about what ends up happening is they're going to inflate all this stuff, right? Not inflate, but give all this money into these corporations. We can't buy anything. And then at the end of the day, these people got to sell off their assets, these big companies, which opens an opportunity for people who actually have to buy these things at reduced costs. At the end of the day, it seems like all it does is benefit the people that have the money. And at the end of the day, we're going to be screwed. You know what I mean? And eventually that cycle is going to keep going to the point where all businesses are going to be affected. So yeah, somebody might be able to buy those assets for less money. So what though? We still can't buy the stuff, right? So at the end of the day, nobody has it. Nobody has that extra money except the government. It's just, and the people pocketing the money and investing and making more money off of it. You know, it's vicious, bro. The whole thing is vicious, and I don't know. I'm going off a topic a little. I'm sorry, but But
It's all right. We should move on to MSNBC. We should talk about them since. So to speak on MSNBC is kind of complicated because when we talk about MSNBC, we have to understand that they have already leaned off the left-winged kind of messaging since 2015. So they've been going after a more corporate, and we say more corporate because they are a corporate entity as it is already. And they've gone with a much more center, pandering to the never Trumpers kind of angle. So when we talk about that, I'm not sure if you want to, just to give an incidence of this, MSNBC's anchor Chris Matthews compared Sanders' victory in Nevada of last year to a Nazi invasion of France. MSNBC host Chuck Todd quoted a conservative column on the air that likened supporters to brown shirts. So it's kind of just the attack that most of us know about at this point, which is that MSNBC kind of has a negative correlation with progressives as a whole. I actually don't even want to focus on that unless you have a feeling about that, because my feelings are kind of crossed about it. I understand where they're coming from, and it disturbs me, but at the same time, I've almost gotten to the acceptance mode. I've kind of gotten to what CNN is trying to do, and I got into an acceptance mode. I know what Fox is doing, so what do you think?
That's the thing, because we're enlightened people, you and I, right? Everybody else, they're in their bubble and they see this stuff. Like I've said before, my mother watches MSNBC a lot, and so her viewpoints, when I talk to her, tend to be a lot of talking points from their stuff, right? She says things about Bernie, like, oh, Bernie's a lot of that's talk. Where's the actions? Or this, that, and whatever. Bernie's had a huge influence on a lot of things that have happened recently. He's opened things to discussions where things that weren't originally discussed. You know what I mean? But a lot of people tend to watch these news organizations. MSNBC, CNN, even BBC, and all these other. They're all like that. They all have their viewpoints. They all have their biases. But I've noticed, like with MSNBC, like during the last primary, there was a lot of I feel lies and deceiving things. Like they had people coming on making comments that I saw with my own eyes. I was like, that's BS, and then they push it. You know what I mean? It's like whatever for ratings, sort of like what we were talking about earlier with Oann. I feel like a lot of this stuff they're doing also is for ratings, because people want to hear the drama and the stuff within the party. They're like, oh, progressives they're trying to go too far and blah 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 blah, and Bernie Sanders is a womanizer, or he said this or did that, and I'm like, well, where's the proof of it? Like, you guys could talk all the talk you want to talk, but nobody recants it, and when they do, it's a little statement here and there that nobody's ever going to see. It's already made its negative effect. At that point, the only reason why Chris Matthews, or whatever this guy's name is, or whatever, went through what he did is because he made a comment that had to deal with Nazis and Jews and everything else. And Bernie Sanders, I guess maybe because he's a Jew, maybe it offended people. I don't know what to why people decided to pick this as a particular reason to get at Chris Matthews. But there were plenty of other situations where things should have been addressed, and they didn't make a big statement. Like it takes like an extreme thing to come out of somebody's mouth for them to actually make get the anchor in trouble or whatever it is. And even then, it's like it doesn't help anything with the public. The public still doesn't see the viewpoint because it's barely spoke about or acknowledged. You know what I mean? They're like, well, we fired Chris Matthews. That came and went, and they still, I don't think it made a big difference on a lot of people's viewpoints towards Bernie, other than the fact that you got people that agree with it.
I think that has a lot to do with people's opinions of Sanders already. I think that this is actually a weakness that happened in the Sanders campaign, is that they tried to reach out to the middle of the road too much instead of reaching out to Black and indigenous people. really. So he just didn't do well enough in a lot of areas. And I agree though that that's actually more complicated because the South Carolina primary is kind of a mess hall of older black supporters, and they're not going to necessarily support Bernie Sanders. They're going to go after somebody they know, and they know Biden. So this is me almost picking at things.
Viewers, right? Like viewers of MSNBC,
yes,
the ones that
they
are
most likely are MSNBC.
You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, they're already manipulated, and then they take a black, what is it, governor or mayor? Who was it? What was Clyburn? Was it
South Carolina? Clyburn is in South Carolina.
Yeah. The guy who was who basically converted, like, once it created a downfall for Bernie Sanders. Like that one primary is what set the whole thing off. That and everybody else quitting and supporting Biden. You know what I mean? And I'm not mad. You know, it is what it is. But there was nothing in my mind that was of substance in any of that, other than the fact that you had a news organization. And this is what I said before with the news organizations. If you have a voice, you have a big bully pulpit that could say, this person's bad. This isn't the way we're supposed to think. We need to reach towards the center. We need to work with people and blah, 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 blah. And you have millions of people watching it. Then those millions of people are going to tell all their friends, like, oh, I don't know about Bernie Sanders. I'm hearing all this stuff on MSNBC. It's the same thing with all of them. You know, instead of everybody being unbiased, they're sitting there with their opinions. Like, this isn't, to me, news. It's more, what's the word? Opinionated points. You know what I mean? It's not news. This isn't news. This isn't saying what's going on. This is a bunch of people talking heads, like you know, and we, to some extent, that's what we're doing, right? We're giving our opinion and our viewpoints, but at least we're going on both sides of the table. We're talking about right wing, how they do things and how it affects the public, and we're also talking about Democrats as well, right? You know, at the end of the day, that they're all have their lobbyists and their influences that make them do what they're doing instead of being, you know, neutral to the whole thing, you know. And
well, the thing is that if we were really going to talk about the left wing or the leftist part, we need to actually talk about how sensationalism in the way that you have to set up your YouTubes and your the media that you do independently is right now. So there's a lot of, I would say that a lot of independent organizations fall under a rabbit hole that they unfortunately need to be in, where you have to have a sensationalized headline. And I don't enjoy it. Like, I am a Young Turk supporter. I will say that. I have no problem with saying that. But I will say that there are certain elements where I think that, you know, the titling for something is just going too far, as in to overexcite the crowd and to overexcite your base. So you get into the bubble after bubble after bubble because people get turned off by that messaging. And there's a lot of messaging from a lot of these different groups of people, and they hit different people. Like MSNBC, I think, literally is hitting all of these middle of the line, never, and I would say never Trumpers, because these are people that would maybe vote Republican in a different life scenario. If life had changed, they might vote for I mean, in like New Jersey, for instance, that's a great indication. Like, that's someplace that voted for a Republican governor for a while, and then did not want to have a Congress that was Republican. They did a mostly Democratic Congress in state, at least, and in national elections. So we need to understand. I'm not even sure how to. My counterpoint to a lot of this is, I don't want to just bag on MSNBC. MSNBC is almost too easy to draw from because you have the Olbermann stuff that happened in the past, the clear indication that they didn't want to deal with left-wing politics. We know that. Like, it's almost easy picking to me. Like, it's harder to talk about CNN, and when, like, for instance, MSNBC has been doing a good job bringing on some progressive people every once in a while, though, and they're doing a better job now. I actually watched a video with Morning Joe that happened today, but you could tell how nervous. I always forget her name, unfortunately. I don't watch Morning Joe every day. What's Scarborough's wife's name?
I forgot.
It's just gonna, it's gonna, you know what? I gotta give her enough respect to at least.
It's not Megan Kelly.
No,
right?
hell no, Megan
I don't
Kelly.
know,
That's
man.
a whole other story. We should leave it. We should go back. We should go back to Oann for that. Misa Brzezinski. That's why.
Okay.
Mika Brzezinski.
Okay.
So Mika Brzezinski, you could tell just how nervous she was in this kind of. It was a crowd of 3 black intellectuals talking about a book, and then 1 extra person. You know what I'm saying? So she's just trying to stay on topic for this interesting discussion about how to not ignore progressives, and you could just kind of tell that she was just like, this is not the discussion I want to have, and that's kind of what we need to do. Like, we need to make them a little uncomfortable. So I have to give MSNBC that. So that's my counterpoint to it. Honestly, I don't think that this strategy works for them as a news network. I think they can't stay at the middle of the line. And sooner or later, they're going to have to decide if they are the full-on, I don't know, center party kind of news network, and then bore everybody to death, and then nobody will watch it.
Yeah.
or go further. I don't know. I think that's their path. Unfortunately, is that I don't know what's going on.
Fox thinks that they're something's happening outside.
Don't worry about it.
No, it's cool. I can't hear anything. I just hear like a little, like it sounds like a radio or something. Not too loud, but anyway, what was I gonna say with regards to it's funny how Fox and everybody wants to call them MSNBC like super liberal and Antifa supporters and whatever else, and in reality, it's like as progressives, I look at it, I'm like, you know what I mean? And the same thing with like Biden, you know, they support Antifa and this and that. I'm like, no, they don't. It's like, you know, I wish, you know, to some degree that Fox News views on MSNBC were more correct. Like you said, like I'm happy with it. I see like Sam Cedar and a couple of other people going on MSNBC and getting lucky enough to show their faces once in a while. And it's nice to get it out there, but you know, like once in a while to me isn't as effective as actually having, you know, people there all the time. You know what I mean? And it's the only reason why Bernie Sanders is getting a voice is because Bernie Sanders is Bernie Sanders. He's done a lot, and he's made a name of himself, you know, with all this stuff that he's been doing with the primaries. But once he starts becoming unpopular, I don't think I'm going to see much of him there. I don't know. Have you seen AOC? I don't know if I've seen AOC on MSNBC too often.
Not on MSNBC,
or
maybe.
Else. I think I've seen Ro Khanna.
No, not in a while.
I think I've seen Ro Khanna on it. You know, occasionally you'll catch a couple people, but it's like, you know, I don't know. I think the topics though that they talk about really aren't like really, in my views, like something that's going to grab a lot of attention to the public. I think it's like a lot of filler content. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel like it's really like something that, because I don't hear too much reporting about it afterwards. If it was such a huge deal, you would hear it on the progressive networks. This person was on blah, blah, blah more often, you know what I mean? But, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, you know, what discourages me is like, if it's not doing the things that their donors want, like basically like with this article that we have with the MSNBC broadcasting lies, this time about Bernie Sanders' opening speech and refuses. This is an older thing that happened to Bernie or whatever. That really bothers me. You know, let me cut back to this view. It bothers me a lot that they can make a mistake and not admit it. And that's what a lot of these news organizations do. They do what they do until a lawsuit comes, and then that's when they do something. Or if they start losing money through their donors, not donors, but their sponsors or whatever, that's the only time they actually make an effort to correct themselves. And, you know, to me, I think maybe not as bad as Fox, but, you know, they're pretty bad as well.
Well, what is as bad as Fox? That's the thing. Fox's numbers still are pretty solid. They're still the #1 rated cable news network. So it's important. Like, this is interesting for me that we had this discussion today, because I don't follow any of these networks. I don't follow Fox. I don't follow AON. I don't even follow like Reddits and 4chans that would give me that information. I might have to at this point, which is hard to realize, is that I might have to get to the point where I'm digesting news that is disgusting to me, you know?
Yep.
So we're going to get to that point, but I think that's a necessary part of it, where we're identifying the problem as much as possible.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut to the Bernie thing so that we could see what's going on. Like, this is old footage, but this is like kind of what we've been kind of talking about.
Not mention race or gender until 23 minutes into the speech. And just for point of comparison, I went back and looked at Elizabeth Warren's opening speech, for example. She mentions race and discrimination in the first paragraph. So that's a big difference. And as somebody who is a black woman, knowing that black women are going to be a core constituency for any Democrat who hopes to win the nomination, I was looking to hear messaging specifically for my community, and I did not, at least until 23 minutes into the speech.
Today, at our very first rally, I want to welcome you to a campaign which says loudly and clearly that the underlying principles of our government will not be greed, hatred, and lies. It will not be racism, sexism, xenophobia, homophobia, and religious bigotry. It will not be tax breaks for billionaires and efforts to throw millions off the health care that they currently have. This campaign is going to end all of that.
So he sets off the speech with everything she didn't say, which is kind of crazy, right? But she said he didn't say.
I mean, that's just selective hearing. I mean, I worry about it obviously for people who weren't actively listening to what Bernie Sanders said. That makes sense. I think that it's in their natural instinct to assume that he wasn't doing enough. I don't know how to feel about it, because that means that there's a rift between even like my constituents, basically the people who I identify with. There's a rift of like trust between anybody who, I don't know who they're going to say is acceptable other than a black candidate, which is fine. I just think that's going to kill us, because we need to understand that it's going to be people of all different types that are going to save us from ourselves in a way. They're going to be all people who are different than us. Strategically, that's just how it is too. Like, people who, you have to have an ego to do that kind of work. You have to have the ability to take on a lot of criticism. And I'm not sure if they're really ready to see a black candidate do that often. That's why we kind of, I guess we're kind of stumping for Nina Turner. We're doing that because we need somebody who's willing to do so.
What bothers me, like, with the whole thing is like how they basically, like, even with the Republicans were doing it at one point before in previous elections, where they would get an Indian person, they'd get a black person, they'd get a Spanish person, and they're like, oh, this person is this, and like so what? A person's a person's a person. Like, I with me, I look at somebody based on their intent. You know what I mean? This is the things that we were always saying, like, when it comes to like what you do with businesses, it's the intent of why you're getting the technology that makes it, whether or not they're using the technology correctly. Everything's about intent. And Bernie Sanders wanted to do something positive. I'm not saying he was perfect. I'm not saying that he had all the answers, but I think out of all the candidates, he was the most authentic in my mind. You know what I mean? And that's why I supported him. Now, the fact that you have these news organizations discrediting people and like not recanting things, they say it once, several 100,000 people get to hear it, right? and then they don't say anything again, or it'll be on a different show at a different time where these same people didn't hear it. You know what I mean? Like if you can't associate, oh, why is this person recanting this, you know, at a different time or a different place, or if it's written on their website somewhere and it's not actually voiced out on the, you know, television by the person that said it, you know, people will never get, you know, one plus one to make the connection. You know what I mean? So I just feel like it shouldn't be about a person's color, about their sex, if it's a male or female, or male or woman. Teresa doesn't like me saying female. A man or a woman. You know?
Why? That's actually that's actually
the scientific term,
male,
but I've heard a lot of women don't like the word female, so I'm trying to respect it. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's weird because that's a cultural. Let's just split off in that argument. That's actually a cultural thing where female is used as a pejorative, but to me, I use that as a distinction of sexual distinction.
Yeah, I mean,
specifically not even gender.
Scientifically, that's the same way, you know, or whatever. That's the way I look at it too. But I feel like I've gotten to the point in my life where if it's offensive and I can make an alteration to whatever it is that I would say, I mean, I shouldn't have to in some cases. But if it's an easier thing to do that than get into a conflict with somebody or a discussion that doesn't have to happen, I try to respect it or whatever, you know. And a lot of people in this country were like, well, that's cancel culture, or that's what is it? What's the word that they use for? Damn, what the hell is that term?
I actually just find it. I don't know, but I'm gonna say that I find it just more interesting because some people would find the term woman like woman. Like
Well,
you're
man,
gonna say
right?
it, so, like woman, you know, no, but like that has a negative connotation in some aspects for other people. So it's just
Yeah.
one of those things where it's a cultural difference, and but I understand. I also usually just say people's names when I know if I know your name.
Yeah. But I mean, like I'm saying, like in terms of this thing, it's like they're like, we need a woman president, or we need somebody of color to this, or like they make these specific demands to excite certain people, and then at the end of the day, that's what keeps people from voting, or makes people vote. Like it could do the opposite in some cases, but it shouldn't matter. At the end of the day, it shouldn't matter. It should be about the person's qualifications and their integrity. You know what I mean? And that's the problem with this country, is that they're like, oh no, because he's black. Like they called Barack Obama a Muslim, and that he was from this place and that place or whatever, and you know the birthers and all that other stuff. And then, you know, then some people have their viewpoints. If a woman becomes president, it'll make the country look weak, and you know everybody has their opinions on whatever. But what if the person, like for instance, Tulsi Gabbard, she was a soldier, right? She could have been, you know, in theory, a strong woman, you know, that could have been a president, right? But some people still think that, you know, her semi-progressive, I don't want to say she's fully progressive, but semi-progressive views are, you know, against their beliefs. There's always certain things that's going to turn people off. It's about the whole package, though. You know what I mean? And it could be a man, it could be a woman, it could be, you know, a different race, religion. It doesn't matter as long as their intentions are right. And, you know, they bank on that with all these organizations. You know what I mean? Like these news organizations, they're like, well, she's not qualified because of this, that, or he's not qualified because of this and that. And I'm sorry if I'm like blabbing, but I think you understand what my point is. It's all about like a specific view. Like if he's not like a lot of people in this country want a relatively middle-aged white guy for president. That's what they want. You know what I mean? They don't want to see a person of color there. They don't want to see a woman there in a lot of cases. And that's, you know, they make that a point in a lot of cases. And then they feel like in order to cater to a base, then, well, we got to have a black person, or we have to have a woman vice president, or we have to have this, or we have to have that. And to me, it's just like, it doesn't matter. It's who's running. Let's look at the people who are running and their credentials. And that's that. You know what I mean? I guess to some degree it matters, you know, for the progress to see that it's possible for a black president or a woman president down the line. But I don't think that should be necessarily the main viewpoint of things. You know, if you got that perfect black woman, great. If you got that perfect, and I don't want to sound like whatever. I don't want to make it like a black woman thing or whatever. But that's what I think drives the voting things and the way these companies like address how to treat the candidates. It just gets, I don't know, it gets like they're what's the word I'm looking for? They're kind of like catering to certain people to kind of like oh well, he's black, or she's it's a woman, or he's Spanish, or he's, you know what I mean? Like I don't like that. I don't think that's a reason. I mean, I want a black president. I want a woman president. I'm not against that. I have a problem with people kind of like like for instance, what's her face? Hillary Clinton with the Tabasco sauce. You know what I mean? Going into the projects. What's the word of that? Damn.
There's multiple things. It's condescending and placating.
Yeah, but that basically. You know what I mean? Like I don't like that. That's what I feel happens when they do these type of things. When they were doing with that Indian guy from, I think, what was it, down south? What's this guy's name? Why can't I remember his name? I'm really bad with names. I gotta start writing some of this stuff. I didn't think we were gonna talk about some of these candidates, but Jindal, is this Jindal? Oh man.
Bobby Jindal.
Yeah, he's the Indian guy who was running for president, right? At one point, right? Or am I bugging?
Sure, is he? Yeah, if you call that running for president.
I thought he was running for president.
He did.
At one point.
He kind of tried to run. He just
Well, it's like they were trying to say, hey, he's Indian, like, or he's this, or they're like, like as a Republican.
It's a common ploy. It's a common political
it's
ploy.
It's just freaking annoying, man. Like that's not what we're supposed to be looking at. We're supposed to be looking at credentials, and like what their goals are at the end of the day. If you don't like their views, like being a socialist or conservative or just a centrist or whatever, that's acceptable. But when you start talking about, we need another woman president, that's one of the things that they were doing with Hillary. They were making it like as if that was like the thing that was the most important thing. She's a woman president. She's related to Bill Clinton, like in some way because they're married and blah 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 blah. Like that's the only reason why she should be president. She had a lot of crap that turned people off, and Msnbc and CNN were pushing that like it was gold. You know what I mean? And I don't know, man. That whole primary or whatever was horrible. You know what I mean? And then now with this thing that happened to Bernie again, like if you can't see the bias, I don't know what to say. Like people are blind, man, and the fact that they're using these things like, we need a woman president, that's something why you should vote for Hillary, or we need this because she's, she's not going to go, like she's not a communist like Bernie is. You know what I mean? Like those viewpoints, I'm like, nobody's listening to the actual substance of what these people are saying and what their history is about. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We should move on to our cool down because it looks like we need it.
Yeah, definitely.
Black eligible voters in GA in Georgia has increased and it's shown in the census data. As an emerging battleground state in national elections, Georgia's changing electoral makeup has been the focus of renewed attention in the 2020 election cycle. This is particularly true between the January 5th runoff, so that's coming up soon, guys. Anybody who's actually in Georgia, for the U.S. Senate seat. Between 2000 and 2019, Georgia's eligible voter population grew by 1.9 million, with nearly half of the increase attributed to growth in the state's black voting population, according to a Pew Research Center analysis. So the graph that I have here, for instance, shows that there was an eligibility dip from 68 to 58% for white individuals, a 27 to 33, which is a +6 for black individuals, and then about a +2, +3 for Hispanic and Asian. So it just means that there's a precipitation of black people who have moved into the state from other places. Oh, there's my frame rate. There we go. But basically,
cut over for a second. I'm going to cut over to, I believe it's the graph that you're talking to. Just give me 1 second so that the people can see it.
No problem.
Let's see. Is this the right one? I'm sorry. I didn't have it set up on this for some reason. I don't know why. Here we go. Merge. Here we go. There we go. That's the one you were looking at?
So, yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that everybody, this is all of the things that scare white people right now. Basically, black people from across the country, especially from New York, Michigan, and even Alabama, are moving towards Atlanta. And it says, they specifically said that it seems that the concentration is in urban centers, with about 59% of the momentum into Georgia. So this is exactly what they're afraid of. all these black people, and also people coming from African countries and from the Caribbean. The Caribbean numbers is pretty high as well. I believe it said that Jamaica and Guyana was the two highest for those two. So basically, those voters changed the whole outset of the Atlanta election, in my opinion. I would say the Atlanta election because that's what won the state. In the end, that's that won the state for Joe Biden, and also we're gonna have to penetrate that base of people in Georgia to actually fund Ossoff and Warnock so that they actually have a chance of winning. And I mean, hopefully they did that. But it's only a week away, where we're going to see in the runoff if this black eligible voters has significantly changed. So yeah, that was the interesting thing, that 88% of black people voted for Biden, 62% of Latino. 88% is pretty insane. That's a statistically high variance. that's saying that you have
fake
that
news.
Unlock.
Fake news.
Yeah.
You gotta have people saying that all day long. Fake news. Like this
just to be fair with everybody, it's a poll. It's a poll.
Yeah.
It's a poll. So I have to give them that. There's a percentage point that it could be off by.
Yeah. You know how it is though, right? Nowadays they're gonna be like fake news. They what is it? They affected all the states. It wasn't just one. Like, yeah, all right, but fake news. That's all. It's funny how people like think that somehow or other they can coordinate that smoothly. This country is the most unorganized. Like, you know what I mean? Like, certain people are organized, but I feel like a huge percentage of this country is hugely unorganized. It's hard for me to believe some of the stuff that some of these crazy people believe, man. Like, unbelievable, bro. It's unbelievable. Like, I wish this country was that organized, because then we'd be in a better place right now with this COVID stuff. But yeah, we can't even get that right. They managed to yeah. But I'm happy. I hope that we what do you think that now that Trump supposedly agreed, which he hasn't done yet, signed the bill, how do you think that's going to affect the Georgia election?
I don't think it's going to have any effect on the Georgia election. I think that the hand wringing to like take back the money, say that you should only get 2,000 because you appreciate me as president isn't going to work. It's too late. He lost the election. If it would have been a power move if he had won the election. Yeah. Now it's more like a.
I don't think they're going to get to 2,000 though. I think it's only going to be 600. I think he just signed the current bill, from what it sounds like. So, either way, we're screwed. You know what I mean? I think he avoided a shutdown, and all that other stuff. I think all that stuff was to kind of persuade people to come back to the table and do his bidding. And now that he realizes it's not going to happen, he kind of had to renege it. But I don't know, man. I don't know how this is going to affect that. My fear is that they win the election, the Republicans win the elections, and Biden is stuck to not being able to do anything. We'll see. I don't want to bring it back to a Debbie Downer thing.
No, it's all right. I'm just I'm reading. It says Trump signs coronavirus relief and government funding bill into law after a lengthy delay, and that just happened a couple seconds ago. So it's 9:33.
Yeah.
So this article says President Donald Trump signed the massive $2.3 trillion coronavirus relief and government funding bill Yep. Sorry, I'm just reading. Trump's signature of the $900 billion COVID relief extends unemployment benefits for millions of jobless gig workers and independent contractors. The estimated 12 million people in the two key pandemic and unemployment programs who were facing their last payment this weekend will now receive benefits for another 11 weeks, plus all those collecting jobless. So yes, it's just basically the bill that was supposed to go through.
$600, right?
It's the 600 and the 300, yeah, and 300 weekly for your unemployment.
That's a damn shame. So what happens with the housing crisis? Is that still, did that affect the housing crisis? Does it say anything about it? Like, does it
It doesn't speak on that. I can tell you that obviously that's not enough money. It's never going to be enough money. I mean, so let's just say, I'll just say for myself, for instance, if I get an increase to $300 of unemployment a week, and I get the $600 check, that means that 1 week of that is this room that is empty that I can't seem to fill because there's so many rooms available. That's gone right there. Yep. So that's just 1 week of unemployment and the $600 check. So while it's a positive because it staves off another month of problems, we have to look at it from the realization that COVID is going to stay around for another couple months. No matter if people are getting vaccinated, literally people who won't be able to get vaccinated have to worry about it for the next 6 to 7 months, maybe, depending on who you are, where you're from, what you're doing. If you're an essential worker, if you have the connections for it. So I know that for me,
there's no forbearance thing that you saw in there or anything like that either, right? There's no forbearance, right? Like for the mortgage and everything else.
I know that it extended a plan that for housing, but let's see. Not directly. It doesn't say here directly. I could read more into it too because I know it's a really big plan.
Yeah,
it's a large government plan.
I don't want you to have to like kind of like guess at things because then we're giving false information if we're wrong, right? So I guess at a later date we'll talk about it. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people complaining and bitching. Hey, this didn't help me with this. So we'll know in next week or so. That's.
I mean, it's going to take longer than that. It's going to take at least like 3 weeks for all of this to go through for most people. Yeah. That's kind of the hardest part is that there's going to be a lag, and we've waited so long to just do this small section of the. I mean, we're going to need another one. We're going to need something after this. And I don't know if we're going to get it.
Yeah, because of Georgia, right? Like if we lose Georgia, that's not going to happen. These guys are going to be
exactly.
Yeah. And even I don't know, man. Well. Let's not be down. It's a little positive, right? We're still at a little bit of a positive.
Yeah, it's a positive.
Something's better than nothing, right? But yeah, man. Yeah, that's I don't know. Wow. Anyways,
it's all right.
How do you feel about like Trump? Do you think Trump's gonna keep doing crazy things like between now and the inauguration? Like, do you think that this is the last thing that we need to talk about for the the rest of the year? You think something else might come up? Based on like how.
I mean, most of the stuff that we know of is kind of already down the pipeline. If he might commute more sentences, he might pardon more people. I don't think he has any large active friends that he's going to pardon, but he might pardon somebody that is some way politically advantageous to him. I don't know what else crazy he could do at this point. I mean, I think he dunked his hand into trying to do something crazy by coming from the left, flanking from the left about the $2,000. So I think that's the last like crazy thing that he can do. I don't think that he can control the army at this point, like control them into doing something negative to keep him in office. Those are my positives, to be honest, because I just don't think that he has the power at this point to do much of anything except for obliviate and just be boisterous for the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
And pardon people. He might pardon some more really gross people. I mean, I didn't really want to talk about it in the stories, but the people that he pardoned are all in terrible people. Like, either have defrauded the government and defrauded the people, have been part of Blackwater, people who killed people in Iraq and basically get away with it even after being put into jail for, they were supposed to stay in jail for at least 10 to 15 years, and that's not going to happen. So that's the things that I worry about, but I try not to concentrate on it because there's nothing we can do. This is unfortunately part of his powers.
That's that Blackwater thing bothers me a little bit from hearing stories. I had an argument with somebody on Facebook, and he says, well, we weren't there. We don't know. There's two sides to a story. I'm like, dude, like they were proven in court that they purposely did whatever they did. Like, okay, if you say so, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that.
I mean,
they
were
They
were taken out of the military. I mean, they were literally flagged by the military. So it's a intense story. I wish we could do anything about it, but literally he followed the rule of law, and the rule of law is that he can pardon people after they're convicted of a crime. And unfortunately, it's not I think there's certain felonies that you have to commute the sentence, so that basically this pardon means that they did nothing wrong. And that's the scariest part to me.
What pisses me off is that he wanted to execute the Central Park 5, right? Or, for the Central Park jogger incidents when they were innocent. But then now you got guilty people that he's releasing. Like, that's the super most hypocritical. I don't know. I can't stand Trump, man. I'm so looking forward to him being gone. Every day was like stressful to me, man. I know he's still gonna have a voice and he's gonna still be out there blabbing his garbage and everything, but at least he's not going to be, the main focus on, everything. He's not going to be president anymore, which is good. You know what I mean? We won't look like fools as a country as much, I mean, we are fools to some degree with some of the stuff we put up with, but, at least it's not underneath him. You know what I mean? Like, that guy is some kind of special right there. Man. Like, that guy's got issues. But, anyways, let's take it easy.
Time to wrap it up. Yeah, time to wrap it up here. So I hope everybody learned a little bit about how ONN and Newsmax got their creation, and a little bit more about maybe the slant of MSNBC to be a little bit anti-progressive, and the black eligible voters, which is a great story to know that the census leans out that female black voters probably are the real concentration of people who did the work for us and made us so that Biden would win. So thank you for joining us today. I hope we all grew a little bit, shared a bit of ourselves.
Have a great holiday season too. Everybody have a great holiday season. Be safe out there.
Have a fantastic new year.
Yes, definitely. All right. Love you all. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
Much love.